Hello everybody, San here, engineer, MBA, and investor. And in today's video, I want to talk about 2021, a recap. And basically, I have this idea of basically having a video about awards, talking about the biggest winner, loser, best CEO, and so on. This idea was sort of inspired by the All In podcast. So hopefully, you guys will appreciate this type of video. This is tailored specifically to CRISPR slash biotech companies, although a little bit more towards CRISPR companies, and I'm curious to see what you guys think about any of these awards. Let me know in the comments below using this format, hopefully what you see on the screen. But before we do that, before we jump into today's video, do like this video, smash the like button, destroy that like button, guys. It's just underneath this video. Subscribe if you have not. It's free, it's quick, it's easy. It really does help this channel. 2021 has been an amazing year and this community has grown so much, guys. Thank you so much for your support. But 2022 will be even bigger as we leave this bear market in biotech and potentially enter in a bull market where we all know, and I've been repeating this run will be huge, huge. Again, not financial advice, just speculation. So today's video, again, like I said, inspired by the All In podcast, which, by the way, shout out to those guys. They do a great job covering some of the companies, some of the space going on in the world, the politics, and so on. But specifically here, biggest winner, biggest loser, best IPO, best CEO, best technology, best turnaround. I could have come up with other awards, but I wanted to sort of condense it into these few categories. Maybe next year we'll add more categories. But let's start here. Biggest winner in the CRISPR slash biotech space. I think this is quite obvious to me, to everybody in this space. The biggest winner here has to be Antilia, right? Antilia Therapeutics, right? This company has basically in June 2021, end of June, they released phase one data for the first time ever for an in vivo approach of CRISPR. Basically, what in vivo is basically making the edits inside the organ, in this case, the liver, that NTLA did for the NTLA 2001 program. But other companies like CRISPR Therapeutics were doing ex vivo, which means you extract whatever you need to extract, make the modification in a lab, in a manufacturing plant, wherever you do it, and then reinsert it in the body's human body, right? In vivo is not reducing all those costs and delays. Now, obviously, ex vivo versus in vivo, there are differences, there are applications for both. But in this case, I truly believe the biggest winner was NTLA. And I think clearly we can see by the stock price here. Let's see if we can get it up here. Clearly, here, the stock price went way up. Clearly, you can see here June, it shot up from like the late 70s, early 80s to all the way to 100% double, right? We were seeing like 50% over day. I remember the first day was up 50%, the next day was up like 20%. It was just wild. I think people were completely taken off by surprise here. I think we all expected great data, but no one expected 100% growth in just a few days, right? That was crazy. Biggest loser, this one is a hard one because when you talk about biggest loser, it's very, very hard to talk about biggest loser when there are so many of these companies that are revolutionary and these technologies take time to develop. There is no commercial available drug, for example, for the CRISPR space. So, I could throw out some names, but just because it's a stock price, but the fundamentals have gone just better, right? More programs, more safety data, more efficiency. But there's one particular company that I do believe that they are the biggest loser, and that has to do a lot more by another institution basically buying into it. And I think everybody should know by now this is Teladoc, right? Teladoc is one of those companies I think that a lot of people had high hopes entering in 2021, and they are a genomics company. They are the leading company in the ARK G fund, which is the ARK Invest Genomics Fund. Whether you consider them a genomics company or not, that's your opinion, but technically they are in the RG fund, and a lot of us consider the RG fund to be the de facto when it comes to genomics company. Personally, I think they are a genomics company now. Obviously, they're not in the CRISPR space. They're not really in the sequencing space. They're basically a software company that leverages healthcare to another level, right? But I think this is the biggest loser. I think clearly here, if you take a look at their stock price since the year started, this company has been hit so hard. The revenues have been actually quite acceptable, if not better than average to what people expected. Yet the company stock tumbled. They are the leading company still in the RG fund, and they're, I believe, they're number two or number three at this point in the holding of ARK Invest as a general. I do believe they're just behind Tesla, and basically this is the biggest disappointing year from ARK Invest. Now, I do want to mention that Teladoc has a bright future, right? Obviously, things have been sideways this year. It's been going down. But I do believe 2022, as we sort of move out this pandemic and their revenues stay stable, we've seen those hidden partnerships that we sort of released few months ago. If you guys look at our video catalog, you will see some of their hidden partnerships that were found in a thread on Reddit. So I do believe Teladoc has a bright future, but unfortunately this year, to me, they are the biggest loser. Best IPO, I think this one is an easy one. Everybody that follows this channel knows exactly what I will say. And in my opinion, the best IPO was Caribou Biosciences. I think when they went IPO, they were just shy of 900 million market cap, which is very small compared to other market cap size company CRISPR space at that time, right? They went public end of July, just shortly after the phase one release from NTLA, and their stock shot up so high. Let's take a look at their stock if we want to take a look at. Let's take a look. This company went exactly, it's like it traded at $15 a share and then all the way almost 100%, almost doubled, right? So quite a beautiful story. Now, obviously, because of the space being in a bear market, what have we seen happen in the past few months? The company stock has gone down, just like other companies. But besides their stock price, I think Caribou Biosciences, they released some great interviews with the CEO, Rachel Horowitz, which I admire. I am inspired by her work, founder and CEO of this company, 2011. The company was founded, and still the CEO. I found it quite astonishing. Their phase one data is expected to come in 2022. I think it's first half of 2022. It's not really clear when, but that was the last update we got. But phase one, they dosed their patient over the summer just after their IPO, so things are looking good for Caribou Biosciences. I know there were some other companies that went public this year, but to me, Caribou Biosciences is definitely getting that spot, right? So, best CEO in this space, it's very hard because you have some amazing CEOs, right? You have, if we take a look at Dr. Sam from CRISPR Therapeutics, there's Beam Therapeutics, John Evans, there's other CEOs as well, even in NTLA, Leonard, and there's some amazing CEOs out there. And I think they're all amazing companies led by amazing people, especially in their leadership. It's not just a CEO, right? When I say CEO, I'm more referencing a little bit more to leadership, but to me, I think the best CEO, in my opinion, in this space right now, so far, so what I've seen this year, it is definitely Beam Therapeutics, John Evans. I think Evans, just had an interview with Nat Horuni. Um, he mentioned that he was an English major, and I think it's just amazing how he went from an English major background, really, little to no background in biology or chemistry or organic chemistry or genetics, genomes, and so on, and then basically moved to basically the CEO of one of the leading companies in CRISPR, the space, right, or rather one of the best technologies out there, right? So I think I do believe John Evans, his interviews, the way he interacts with users on Twitter, and the way he's providing information about the company, how the company was able to navigate through these time, building partnerships, basically doubling down on base editing, basically getting their R&D accepted. I think this requires leadership. I would give a shout out to Leonard and the team at NTLA. I think their leadership got the job done with NTLA 2001. They sort of announced their base editing program earlier this year, which we've covered in the recent week with their patent situation and so on. I do think that should be a reasonable shout out. And another reasonable shout out I would love to give, this is not in the CRISPR space, but in the more as a company, Ginkgo Bioworks, right? DNA, right? I think Ginkgo Bioworks went public. It takes a lot of efforts to go public, and as a company, what they're doing, um, Kelly is definitely has experience there. I think he and the team knows what they're doing, and I love their interviews with. I think it was the podcast episode called like the organism of life or something along those lines with Moderna. And Kelly was in there talking about his company and obviously about biotech as a whole. And he made a mention moving atoms to atoms. To me, that was the quote of the year. I would probably have this as a award if I could, but quote of the year is moving atoms to atoms. That is just beautiful because it's showing moving bits to bits, which is what Web 2.0 or Web 3.0 at this point, technology, software, and so on is all about. But moving atoms to atom, that's the next era of biotech. That's the next era of genomics, right? So shout out to Kelly from DNA or Ginkgo Bioworks. So best technology, I think this was a hard one because again, you don't have a CRISPR FDA approved drug, and so many of these companies are so amazing, even in the sequencing space, right? You have BNGO, releasing those papers. You have, Invitae doing what they're doing with data. But staying with CRISPR as a company, I think I strongly believe the best technology this year, due to the sheer amount of papers published, is base editing. I think base editing from Beam Therapeutics. Um, and I'm gonna put this as a parenthesis here because this is more of a foreshadowing for 2022. But base editing from Beam Therapeutics obviously is the best technology at this point. The data came in, their efficiency went all, I think, above 94%, something along those lines. We got the data in. I think this is one of those companies that I think is going to go forward with this technology and they're going to double down in 2022. And I don't want to make too much of a prediction here for this video. This will be in the next video as I'm planning on making this series as 2021 recapping, but also 2022 predictions. So I think Beam Therapeutics definitely based at it. Now, I do want to mention NTLA filed for the patent in November. They announced base editing earlier this year, and they doubled down with it with the patent. They've not gone back from with their PR release. Although they haven't provided more details, they haven't really gone back on it. Unfortunately, no one really asked them how they're going to plan to navigate patent infringement and so on. But their patent situation we've covered last video, we sort of see a pathway there. But again, we're still in the unknown as to how they plan on doing it and if data is going to come in efficient or not. But regardless of data coming in efficient or not, I think NTLA will probably most likely go forward with base editing. That's why I'm putting them in parentheses. And then there's CRISPR Therapeutics. Obviously, Dr. Sam has mentioned that they have a base editor. We don't have any patent information. We don't have any PR, any filing information, but we know the CEO has mentioned it a couple of times that they have base editing. Now, the last turnaround category, best turnaround, it's a little bit unfortunate because it sort of, tumbled later that year, this year actually in September, October, early October, late September, unfortunately. And that is, of course, Editas, right? I think Editas had one of the best turnaround of this year, right? Because you got to look at it the whole year, right? I can't just look at the last few weeks. If it was the last few weeks, stock price, I believe it would be Verve Therapeutics because their company went up. Let's take a look at Verve Therapeutics really quickly. So that's why I'm giving them a shout out here because clearly here you see in the last since the last December, the company sort of is starting to go up. But that's not the point of this award. To me, this is really the whole year, and that is Editas. I think Editas has done an amazing job. Earlier, like basically the last few years, to basically, they have had some issues with their leadership. They changed their CEO three times in the last 3 years when the year started in 2021. Their leadership is still intact at this point. Knock on the wood, obviously, but things are looking good for them. Unfortunately, their stock price sort of tumbled after their data came in with their retinal program. Obviously, like I said, in September, if you take a look, it stumbled over 60%. But again, if you look at back in April, in May, clearly you can see up until that data, the company stock went up all the way to 120%. I think that was one of the best turnaround stories because you had one of the first gen CRISPR companies that a lot of people gave up on, specifically including me as well, right? I was like, I think this is one of the older companies that won't be able to stabilize. Leadership is so hard, right? Culture is so important. John Evans from the best CEO in this category, obviously. There's a reason why he's the best category leader, right, in this space because in that interview with Nat Rooney, he actually mentioned, and that's his words, right? Culture is underrated, right? Culture is so important in the company. And I think Editas, me, I was doubting the culture. I didn't really believe that they would recover three CEOs in 3 years is very hard. It's so hard, guys, to recover from that. It will take you years and years, but clearly they proved me wrong as they rebounded earlier this year. Now, unfortunately, since the data came in, things gone downwards. Obviously, with the bear market, didn't help, but it is what it is. I would definitely put Editas as the best turnaround. So best winner, NTLA, biggest loser, Teladoc, best IPO, Caribou Biosciences. Shout out to DNA as well. Ginkgo Bioworks had a great. It was more of a D-SPAC, right? So that's why I'm not too comfortable saying best IPO, but it is what it is. I would definitely put shout out to DNA there. Best CEO, John Evans, but again, the space is filled with amazing CEOs, including CRISPR Therapeutics, Dr. Sam, including Caribou Biosciences, Rachel Horowitz. Best technology, hands down, base editing, most paper published. Prime editors may be a thing next year, but right now, most academic published papers are from base editing for a reason. Beam Therapeutics is the company with base editing. They are the king right now with base editing. But again, as we covered last week, there is another company right in their rear with base editing, and that is NTLA and potentially CRISPR predicts in the future, as the CEO of that company mentioned it in an interview. And then finally, the best turnaround to me, it has to be Editas. I think they've done an amazing job there. So in summary, this is the awards this year. Hopefully you guys appreciated this video. Again, I want to make a video covering a couple of winners, some losers here and there of this space, but it was more to recap 2021. I think 2021 has been an amazing year. I think it was showed how CRISPR companies will fare against a bear market, but most importantly, in a space where there is no FDA approved drug. I think 2022 will be a different story. I really do believe it. And I think end of 2022, we will break grounds as to potentially closing in for the first CRISPR FDA drug. Again, we covered that in the last video. Wanted to end this video like this. Now, I do want to mention that in the next video, I will make predictions for 2022. It'll be an amazing video. If you found value from this video, do like it, do share it, do subscribe. Do leave me a comments below using this format, what you guys think, biggest loser, biggest winners, and so on. Thank you so much for watching and have a beautiful, beautiful week. Have a beautiful week, and we will see each other in the next video. Thank you.